Coming up on this episode, this next song, Woman, was another one sung by Peter and Gordon and was recorded at Abbey Road Studios in London. This is kind of interesting because while Paul McCartney wrote Woman, he used the pseudonym Bernard Webb to see if the song could be a hit without the Beatles' name attached to it. Thanks for stopping by. I did not know that. Please like and subscribe.
Please stop saying don't forget to like and subscribe.
Sure, but how are we going to get followers?
I had the radio on the other day and it was playing A World Without Love by Peter and Gordon. When it was over, I was reminded by the disc jockey that Paul McCartney wrote that song. I'd kind of forgotten that, and it made me think of other songs that McCartney and Lennon wrote that they gave to other bands, and I knew there were quite a few. So I got to thinking it might be fun to look some of them up. I chose 10 songs they gave away, and most were pretty successful. There were different reasons why they did give songs away, and we'll cover some of that. They even gave one to the Rolling Stones, which provided them with their very first hit, and we'll look at that one too. I wish I could play each song here, but you know all that copyright stuff, and I don't want to mess with it. But I do provide a link for each song so that you can listen to any that you might be unfamiliar with. So let's take a look at the first one I mentioned. McCartney was dating a girl named Jane Asher, who happened to have a brother, Peter. Peter had signed a recording contract with his friend Gordon Waller, and so they called themselves Peter and Gordon. When McCartney was 16, he'd written A World Without Love, and Peter asked if he could use it. Lennon found the line, "Please Lock Me Away," funny, and would crack up when he sang it. Paul decided it wasn't Beatles-worthy and gave it to Peter. It hit #1 in America and the UK, and ironically, it bumped out the Beatles' own Can't Buy Me Love for the top spot. Credited to McCartney and Lennon, McCartney wrote I'll Be On My Way in 1959. It's a Buddy Holly-inspired song, and Paul would play it on his first guitar. Lennon thought the line, "This way will I go," sounded like something Quasimodo would say.
I can hear my friend. Shall I play them for you?
And he would pretend to be a hunchman. So Paul had no choice but to smile and go along with it. Billy Kramer with the Dakotas put this song on the B-side of his record, and it went all the way to #2 in the UK. What was the other side? Another Beatles song, Do You Want to Know a Secret, which also hit #2. Hello Little Girl is one of the early songs written by John Lennon in 1957, and it's credited to Lennon and McCartney. Lennon said it was one of the first songs that he ever completed. Buddy Holly was one of Lennon's favorite artists, and many say they can hear the influence of that in this song. The Liverpool group The Foremost recorded it in 1963, and it went to #9 in the UK charts. 1 and 1 is 2 is credited to Lennon-McCartney, but it's actually just an early work of McCartney. Lennon didn't like it. It was originally intended also for Billy J. Kilmer and the Dakotas, but that group turned it down. The Foremost, the previous group I mentioned, also was offered the song, and they rejected it. Their lead singer, Brian O'Hara, later said McCartney came into the studio and played it for them, but O'Hara said there just wasn't any meat in the song, and his band just couldn't get anywhere with it. Mike Shannon and the Strangers finally recorded it, but they should have done what the others did and rejected it. This one went nowhere and didn't chart. Like Dreamers Do is another one written by McCartney, this time in 1959. The Beatles had used it in 1962 for an unsuccessful edition for Decca Records. A couple years later, in 1964, a group called the Applejacks recorded it. Despite its catchy melody and the Beatles' connection, Like Dreamers Do did not achieve significant chart success. It didn't chart in the US, and it peaked at #20 in the UK. Nobody I Know was the follow-up single to Peter and Gordon's big debut hit, A World Without Love, and another Lennon-McCartney composition. The success of Nobody I Know helped cement their reputation as a popular act during the British invasion, and was important for maintaining Peter and Gordon's momentum after their first success. It showed that their appeal was not limited to a single hit, and they had staying power in the rapidly evolving music industry of the 1960s. It reached number 12 in America and number 10 in the UK singles chart. I Don't Want to See You Again is one more song from McCartney and used by Peter Asher and Gordon Waller. This is another hit song that surprisingly did better in the US than the UK, where it didn't even chart. While the duo was certainly very talented, I learned that they never actually wrote a successful song of their own. So Peter was pretty lucky to have a sister dating one of the Beatles. This song did well in the US, peaking at number 16. How many of you knew the Rolling Stones' I Want to Be Your Man was written by Lennon and McCartney for the Rolling Stones? Lennon and McCartney were invited to a studio where the Stones were rehearsing, long before they were famous. While they were there, they completed writing a song in front of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, and they gave it to them. The Rolling Stones learned it, and it became their first hit. While it didn't chart in America, it went to number 12 in the UK. This next song, Woman, was another one sung by Peter and Gordon and was recorded at Abbey Road Studios in London. This is kind of interesting because while Paul McCartney wrote Woman, he used the pseudonym Bernard Webb to see if the song could be a hit without the Beatles' name attached to it. This was done to show critics they were wrong to say that Peter and Gordon's success was primarily due to their connection to the Beatles. The song reached number 14 in the US and number 28 on the UK singles chart. This last one, Come and Get It, is a song that I remember well, and I knew that McCartney had written it. He recorded a studio version at Abbey Road Studios, and then he told the group Badfinger that they could have it, but if they wanted a hit, they needed to play it exactly like the demo that he had played for them. Of course, he was right, and the Badfinger song went to number 7 in America and number 4 in the UK. It's kind of fun to listen to McCartney's version of it because Badfinger's version really is almost an exact duplicate of the song. We had to throw at least one in that wasn't written by Lennon and McCartney. Badge was written by George Harrison for Eric Clapton in 1969, and it's kind of a funny story. Clapton had to come up with a song for his Goodbye Cream album. Harrison was helping him, and when Harrison was writing the lyrics down, he wrote Bridge on the paper. Clapton read it upside down and cracked up laughing and asked, "What's Badge?" The name stuck. The song peaked at number 18 in the UK singles chart and number 60 on the US Billboard Hot 100 chart. The Beatles had an incredible run, and almost everything they wrote turned to gold. I know there are more songs out there like these. Can you name any more? Thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoyed this one. See you later.
Ba-da-da.